Okay, let's get started. This will be our first event of the program. We would like to introduce Enrico Beltramini. Enrico is a lecturer and professor at Notre Dame de Namur University in Belmont, California. He's been there for 20 years. His most recent book is called Passage to India, Abhishikananda and the Retrieval of the Supernatural in Roman Catholicism. I think that's the title, right? Is that it? Close. Anyway. And then he wrote a book on Pentecost the year before, I think. It's called, give me a second. It's called The Unknown Christ of Christianity, Scripture and Theology in Pentecost Early Writings. That's from 2021. So Enrico has traveled all the way from California to get here and just arrived this morning. So we're putting him on first. We would like to honor you with a shawl before we get started and invite you to come up and sit at the podium. Enrico's born in Italy, but has lived the last 20 years in the U.S. Hello. Okay, so can we give a warm round of applause for?
So, first of all, thank you very much to the organizer for giving us the chance to be all together today to honor Abhishikananda. Thank you, thank you, your community. I thank you, but you will receive the thanks of every single presenter coming here. I prepared the presentation. Look, I want you to see that I did my job. Okay? See, I did it, but I'm not ready. So you're lucky. But I did my job. So I spoke with other presenters that we present today, tomorrow, the other days, and they will address many different aspects, angles of Abhishikananda, particularly, of course, the interreligious dialogue, of course, is very famous, as you know. But this is not the angle I'm going to address. What I want to do today is just to read you a passage of a letter that he wrote to somebody, explain soon, and to try to understand what he's trying to say. Okay? That's it. Very easy job. It's not easy, actually. It's not easy. So the sentence you will see is quite easy. To understand what is behind the sentence is a little bit complicated. I want to be honest with you. I will not try to make it too simple, but I will try to make it clear. Okay, is the deal. So let me start with the sentence. The sentence is in a letter that he sent to Sister Teresa of Jesus before he died. And the sister was at the time, at the beginning of her life in the Carmel. She was Carmelian. And so Abhishikananda writes these words. Again, don't be so preoccupied about your contemplative life. Instead, be focused on the present moment. The rest will take care of it. Only come to India for God Himself, not for yourself. Not to be contemplative, not to be perfect. The true contemplative doesn't worry about being a contemplative. He is contemplative. Contemplative is having your regard on God. Asking yourself if you are a contemplative means that you have you have your regard on yourself. Well, at the very superficial level, the meaning is clear. What this says is you are not here for yourself. You are following your vocation. God calls you here. Don't try to be a contemplative, because if you try to be a contemplative, it becomes an egocentric, egoistic kind of movement. Don't. But this is only the superficial level. I want to return on a couple of sentences. He said, don't be so preoccupied about your contemplative life. Instead, be focused on the present moment. So what does it mean to be present on, to be focused on the present moment? Well, honestly, one way to say it, when my mom, I was young, they would say, no, you think too much about the future, stay on the moment. But of course, this is not the meaning that he has in mind when he writes this comment to Sister Grace. And it also, I want to look at another sentence when he says, don't be a contemplative, don't become a contemplative. Okay? Don't become a contemplative. Now, becoming is a strange word. Becoming means there is a process. Father Dorothek was at the beginning of his life as a monk. Then he became a full monk, and now, of course, he is the prior of his community. So it's a progression. As a scholar, you go to take a PhD, then you become a professor. And the same for each of us when we become mothers and fathers and whatever. But he's saying that becoming is wrong. Okay? So becoming a mother, becoming a father, becoming a scholar, becoming a monk, becoming a contemplative is wrong. Which then makes probably 95% of us on the wrong side. So what exactly he has in mind? These are powerful words. Again, we can look at the very superficial level, and we could try to go into to see if we can understand better what he had in mind. So I said I will try to be clear, not necessarily to be simple. So let me make an example. So imagine two trains that leave the station at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. One is in India, in Delhi, and the other one is in Washington, D.C., United States. After 3 hours, both trains reach their destination. So it's very clear that both trains left at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But the time, as is perceived by the people on the train in Washington, D.C., is different than the time as is perceived by the Indian passengers on the train leaving there. So I want you to forget for a second when we talk about natural time, physical time. I want you to think what it is time, cultural, the way we consider time, because that is the way we have to follow in order to understand a little bit when Abhashitananda says, live in the moment. Okay? When he says living in the moment, he's not saying living at 3:15. He's trying to communicate something deeper than that, a way of thinking, a way of experiencing time. Okay? So experiencing time. So how we experience time, you and I? Well, it's very simple. As I said before, becoming So we become something. Dorothy decided one day that he wanted to build this event, and he started making the plan, and then involved other people, and step by step, we have reached the point of this event. So there is a become. This is chronological time. This is chronological time. So basically, one step after the other. Is Abhashitananda saying living in the present time means you intersect in the very moment, in a certain moment of the chronological time? No. No. So we have to start discovering another dimension of time. But if we discover another dimension of time, maybe we understand a little bit better as much as we can what exactly means living in the present time. So for a reason that I will try to explain later in overview, I will ask about, I think Abhashitananda was living in a different perception of time. He was not living in our perception of time. Our perception of time, I'm sorry if I repeat, but I want to be clear, is that every moment is important and every moment follows the previous one. So that I am a scholar because I did a PhD early on, and Dorotech is the prior because it became a monk. So there is a succession in instance. But maybe there is another way to consider time, which was the way that Abhashitananda was considering, which allowed us to understand a little bit better when he says, don't become a contemplative. Live in the present moment. So what is this present moment? I have I was expecting another kind of audience. And so with another kind of audience, I would say something like that. So I say it anyway. I was saying that. So for those of you who know some Paul, so there is a letter in the Corinthians, this is the first letter of the Corinthians, which he says, and I quote, well, I take my glasses because I'm getting older. I mean, brothers, the appointed time has grown very short. Then it says, those who have spouses, they are married, should live as though they had none. Okay? What it says is, I mean, the appointed time has grown very short. Those who have spouses should live as though they had none. You might ask, why you're moving from Abhashitananda to some Peter? Give me some trust. I will explain. So let's go to some Paul and try to understand what he says. Forget for a second, I mean the appointed time has grown very short. I will explain in a bit. But he says, those who have spouses should live as though they had none. So what does it mean? Honestly, you can say the same thing. Those who are contemplative, they have to live as though they are not. Those who are mothers, they have to live as though. What is this saying? Well, a possible explanation, an explanation that you find in many manuals and books, works basically in this way. St. Paul was expecting the end. In Christian theology, it's called eschatology, so it means the end. And so St. Paul was saying, well, the end is coming. What is the point to change your status? But in reality, Paul is not saying, if you are a mother, don't be a mother. or if you are exposed, if you are a scholar, become something else. What it says is you have to be as you are, as a thought you were not. So what? Well, the explanation is in the sentence before, when he says, I mean, brothers, the appointed time has grown very short. What does it mean? Well, what he's trying to say is not that the time is ending. And because the time is ending, because there is the end, there is no more time to do anything. What he's saying is rather the opposite, is we have to end time. We have to end time, which basically means we have to end chronological time. And this means stop becoming. Let me repeat it again. Is everything? So let me repeat it again. What he's trying to say is not that because there is the end, the time is ending. What he's saying is that we have to end time, actually chronological time, the becoming. We have to stop becoming. That's why he says, if we are mothers, we have to act as we were not. He's not saying, as you will see some kind of manuals, well, because it's the end, it doesn't matter what you are doing. So if you are a mother, who cares? If you are a father, who cares? It's not saying that. What he's saying is stop time. And if I can use a technical sentence, is you have to deactivate the power that time has on us. He has to deactivate the power that time has on us. And you might ask, well, just a second, but we are temporal people. Of course, we are temporal people because we are born and then we die, and there is a process in between, and we are sick and then we are no longer sick. Yes, of course, St. Paul is not saying that we are not dying and there is no the troubles of life. What he's trying to say is to live time as a free person, which basically means not be conditioned by time. If you go back to the original sentence of Abhishektananda, you will see some similitude in some analogies. What he's saying is you have to live in the present. Don't become a contemplative. Now, the question becomes, okay, I understand. I have to, sorry, this small. I am honored. I take it. I believe it. And you might say, okay, I understand. We are in captivity. And our captivity is called chronological time. And again, I don't want to emphasize the point, but we are really in captivity. We wake up at 7 o'clock, go to mass at 9 o'clock, we go to lunch at 12. This is captivity. And we think that following this process, we become contemplative mothers and so on. This is basically what St. Paul is saying. He's laughing at us. Because basically the point we try to say or explain is that it's not that in chronological time we become something. That is the point. But let me go to the other point. So, okay, let's say we understand that we have to free ourselves from the captivity of a chronological time, whatever it means. And I might say it's very difficult to understand this to people like us because we are so embedded in chronological time. It's very difficult to see the alternative. Abashitaranga saw the alternative. That's why we are talking about it. Now, what is the alternative? What is the alternative? Again, you have to forgive me, but because I was expecting a different kind of audience, um, um, I have to introduce some theological elements of Christian theology. So I don't want to upset anybody who doesn't believe in Christianity. But that's my presentation is this. So sorry for not being an ecumenical. So sometimes, if we believe, we place our belief in more or less this temporal scenario. Christ came, something happened. We knew what is the truth without the resurrection, and Christ will come again. And then it will be the end of everything. So the time between the first and the second coming is this time. And this time is what? I don't know, awaiting a transformation, building something better, using this time to be better, to be ready for the final judgment. So, but this was not the idea of St. Paul. And as you notice, I'm trying to use St. Paul as it's called hermeneutical key, as an example to penetrate into Abhashitananda. So St. Paul didn't believe that something, Christ came, we know that about the revelation, and then at the end of everything, a transformation of reality will happen so that the spirit will enter in this world, and that will be the end. St. Paul believed exactly the opposite. St. Paul believed that there was a time when Christ comes, and it's called the ontological structure of reality is changed. Ontological structure of reality means that the reality as it was before has been changed definitely, to the point that when the second coming will come, it will be not changed because the change has been already arrived. Because the change has already arrived, we are already in the world of spirit. And that's why we have the chance to live in a different time. Now, I stop for a second. For those of you who, like me, adore Abhashitananda, and you know every single sentence is said in the notes and the books and blah, blah, blah. You know that sometimes it was a little bit bitter with the church. And there is an expression, he was using an expression, and the expression was the church is still in the Neolithic age. So if you know, Neolithic means before the Homo sapiens, yes, before the Homo sapiens, when humanity was unclearly very close to the chimpanzee. So what he was trying to say is that the church still believes that we live in the same world that we were believing before Christ was come. But now that Christ has come, the reality is different. And so the chronological time that we live in in reality is what is called an heritage of the previous age. In reality, we can enter in the new time, a time that is different from chronological time. So let me step back for a second to repeat. So on one side, Abhashitananda was saying, well, chronological time is a problem because we don't become anything. Actually, we imprison ourselves in something. On the other side is saying, but there is another time. From where this idea of the other time comes? From the idea that the resurrection changed completely the structure of reality, spiritualized reality, to the point that in time there is the spirit. So Abhashitananda never used this word, which is a Greek word. It's called kairos. But let me go back to what I was trying to say when I said there are two trains. One went from Washington, D.C., and one from there. The early Christians had different times. One is the chronological time we still have, and the other one was the Kairos time. Kairos time is the time to stop the time. And it's not, as maybe somebody thinks, that is God that suddenly enters in the flux of time and stop the time. There is a late biblical scholar now, unfortunately, he's dead. And he was used to make an example, a very nice example, to explain how it does not work. What he said is, you have a prophet. Imagine you have a prophet 5 centuries before Christ. So the prophet wakes up, and then he had breakfast, and then he brings his kids and his children to school. When he's coming back from school, suddenly he's possessed by the spirit. So he goes home and he starts writing the prophecy. When the spirit is satisfied, the spirit leaves this guy, and the prophet becomes back a normal person. And this is more or less the idea we have when we think that God intervenes in time. So there is time, flux of time, and God enters in, and suddenly the time stops. But this is not what St. Paul and Abhashitananda have in mind. The spirit is inside the time, not outside time. The spirit is inside time. And so when the spirit inside time stop time, you have the moment. So what Abhashitananda was trying to say is, you cannot become a contemplative. What you have to do is simply, and then I will explain the things, simply to find the spirit. The spirit will bring you to the moment. The moment is the interaction of chronological time. Does it make any sense? Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes, repeat. So you have to understand better how we shift from chronological time to kairos, the spiritual time. You have to imagine Mass, the liturgy. I don't think I say anything wrong if I say that today the liturgy is not what it was. Today, we go to church, the priest does whatever he has to do, then we chant, then we take the Eucharist, and then we leave. And everything happens in chronological time. But in the past, liturgy was the moment in which you were switching from chronological time to the time of God. People really believe that when the pastor, the priest, was making the Eucharist, the time was stopped, not because there was no time, but because the Spirit was there. And when the Spirit comes, the time stops. So because we have lost this idea, we don't understand that in this reality there are the Spirit and the time. And every time you switch, Spirit, not Spirit, but time, not time, but Spirit. And this is what Abba Chitananda was trying to say. Every time you become, you are not a contemplative. Every time you are not a contemplative, but you live in the moment, which basically means you touch the Spirit, you are. So in the liturgy, there was the ability to switch on, to moving from chronological time to kairos. But we lost this ability. So let me go back to Abba Chitananda. So let me repeat again what he said to Sister Therese. Maybe now we have a better idea what he was trying to say. Again, don't be so preoccupied about your contemplative life. Instead, be focused on the present moment. The rest will take care of itself. Not to be a contemplative, not become a contemplative. The true contemplative doesn't worry about being a contemplative. So, in another letter, talking with his disciple, his name is Marshall, he makes basically the same point, no longer about contemplation, but about the priesthood. He says, the priesthood, I have a strong impression that it awaits you at some point in the course of time. A priesthood that is very spiritualized, very free from limitations. A priesthood in the Spirit. A priesthood in the Spirit, a contemplation in the Spirit, a motherhood in the Spirit, a fatherhood in the Spirit, a scholar in the Spirit, whatever, a monk in the Spirit, a priest in the Spirit. So we know that Mark never became a priest, but the priesthood in the Spirit, or Abba Chitananda, has nothing to do with the human progress in the course of time. As you notice, he never said, you will become a priest because after so many years, blah, 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 you will become a priest. The priest, the Spirit, will act in the Spirit on time. We have just to wait. And so now you probably understand why I came from Abba Chitananda to St. Paul. Because St. Paul was basically saying exactly the same thing. He was saying, because the world has been already changed, and because the kingdom of God is already here, because we are already saved, because the world is already spiritualized, because we are no longer in chronological time, because we are in the moment, because we are in the spiritualist time, the only thing we have to do is wait, which is exactly what Abhashitananda says when he said, we just need the awakening. The awakening. So, if you have this vision, of course, we have to, again, it's difficult for us because we live in a very highly secularized world. And even those of us who are priests, monks, religious people, lay people, we live in a very secularized world. But if you have for a second this idea that the world has been already changed, there is nothing else to change. We have only to wait the end. And in this moment, we have to be, the gospel says, vigilant. Because another way to read the passage of the vigilant and not vigilant is if you are in Kairos, you are vigilant, and when Christ will come, will pick you up. If you are in prison in chronological time, you lost your opportunity. So basically, the point I'm trying to make, I hope it's quite clear, is according to St. Paul and according to Abhashitananda, we moved from one time to another time. The chronological time is behind, and the spiritual, the Kairos time is time of the moment is here. If we understand that we live in this Kairos time, this time of the moment, we forget to become anything because there is nothing to become. Because the chronological time is no longer in our interest. And because there is no chronological time, there is not becoming. So we don't become monk. We don't become priest. We don't become mother. We are mother. When this spirit comes. Okay? You are a little bit perplexed, but it's okay.
So, we're going to have our main question and answer session this afternoon with Lucy. Dorothy, that would be probably 3:00 session. But we have a few minutes now. Would you be willing to take some questions now,
Yes.
Dorothy? Can we do that? So you want to end now?
Anything you want. Anything you want.
What do you have now?
I think it's already there.
Okay, then I have to move. So we move in now. We just found it out? Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so we'll do the question and answer at 3:00 to 4:00. So that give you time to formulate your questions. And yeah, thank you for that talk. Thank you. Yeah. So we'll end now. We'll end a little early. The bell will ring at 11:15. The prayer will at 12:15. We'll probably ring the bell prayer like 12:10 or something like that. Yeah, well, it's 10 to 12:10. Okay. So just as that bell, that'll be about 25 minutes from now. Okay. Thank you.